Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi wahda. Wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da amma ba'd. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am your brother Ahsan Malik. I welcome all of you to this first international virtual camp for Muslim university students organized by International Institute of Islamic Learning Pakistan and in collaboration with International Institute for Muslim Unity, IIUM Malaysia. We start the program with the recitation from the Holy Quran. I would like to request Brother Professor Dr. Ahmad to recite few verses from the Holy Quran. Brother Ahmad.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Ihsan, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أمن هو قانت آناء الليل ساجدا وقائما يحذر الآخرة ويرجو رحمة ربه قل هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون إنما يتذكر أولو الألباب قل يا عبادي الذين آمنوا اتقوا ربكم للذين أحسنوا في هذه الدنيا حسنة وأرض الله واسعة إنما يوفى الصابرون أجرهم بغير حساب قل إني أمرت أن أعبد الله مخلصا له الدين وأمرت لأن أكون أول المسلمين قل إني أخاف إن عصيت ربي عذاب يوم عظيم قل الله أعبد مخلصا له ديني صدق الله العظيم.
Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Jazakumullah khair, Brother Hafiz Ahmad from International Islamic University, Islamabad. I welcome all of you, brothers and sisters, to this first virtual camp. We are starting today, Alhamdulillah. The theme of this camp is Islamic orientation and addressing the challenges that are faced by students around the world in contemporary times. Our first session is, we are going to start our first session. Our resource person, Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad is here among us. We welcome Professor Anis Ahmad. Professor Anis Ahmad is a social scientist of international repute, and he is founding Vice Chancellor of Rifa International University, Islamabad, here in Pakistan. He carries a PhD from the Temple University, Pennsylvania, USA. He has held numerous academic leadership positions, both nationally and internationally, in USA, in Malaysia, in Pakistan. He has been former vice president of the International Islamic University here in Islamabad, and he founded a very important academy here, Dawah Academy, which has served Muslim communities all over the world in the field of Dawah. He is also founding dean of the Faculty of Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences of the International Islamic University, Malaysia. He is former president and secretary general of Association of Muslim Social Scientists, USA, and has played an active role in the creation and its promotion of International Institute of Islamic Thought. He is also fellow of the University of Science, Malaysia. He writes extensively on contemporary social, political, and cultural issues faced by the Muslim Ummah. He has contributed articles in the Oxford Encyclopedia of the Modern Muslim World, the Encyclopedia of Islam, Istanbul, and the Encyclopedia of Islamic Economy, London, the Muslim World Book Review, UK, and other professional journals. He has written a lot of books in Urdu and English languages. Today we have requested Professor to come and discuss about the contemporary intellectual challenges faced by the Muslim Ummah. So we are very thankful to Professor Anis and we welcome him. He is also chairman of a think tank here in Pakistan, Center for Peace and Global Studies. So I welcome you, sir, and I invite you to please start your session. Jazakumullah khair. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, Dr.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khatim al-anbiya. I'm greatly honored to be here with you. And right in the beginning, let me tell you, I will welcome your questions. I believe that it's only through our interaction that we can elaborate concepts and issues. So please feel free to raise your questions whenever you think there is need for some intervention. The challenges that we face are numerous. I have only picked up a few and will try to share with you very briefly my observations on those various challenges. Next, please. First and foremost, the challenge we face today is that of globalization of economy and education and culture. It's not just matter of economy, but globalization, which has been emerged not only as a concept, but as a international policy. It has very much substituted what was known earlier as colonialism. Globalization apparently means distances, maps of the world, everything reduced to a small village. So you have no more physical territories. IT and media has allowed you to enter anywhere you like. Economy is not confined to one single place. If you want to have economic relations with a farthest possible country of the world, within few seconds, you connect with the relevant persons, and on online business, you can approach anyone. So world has become a small community, but that community is fully controlled in terms of IT, in terms of any policies by certain groups. Therefore, it's not just globalization economy, but it's also of education and culture. The culture of the former colonizer, the language of former colonizer, education system, which was delivered by colonizer to African countries, Asian countries, farther possible places like Australia and so on and so forth. Wherever colonialism went, it came with its own educational system, and consequently, people learned to speak language of the colonizer. This part of the world, Pakistan, was colonized by the British. Some other parts colonized by Dutch, French, Italian, Spaniards, and wherever they went with their own culture. So first problem that we face is globalization, in which Muslims as well as non-Muslims are facing a big challenge, how to respond to it, how to preserve their own values, their own economy, their own identity, their culture. And that is first and major challenge. Next, please. The second major challenge which we are facing is that of democratization. It's a very relevant and beautiful word, and I'm all for democratic means and constitutional means throughout my life. But what it means is essentially the concept of democracy, which has been developed in Britain or America or France. That's what you need to follow. If you follow that system, you are modern. If you are following some other system, you are outdated, living in Stone Age. And therefore, in the name of democratization, unfortunately, all those who claim Statue of Liberty and many other monuments, they have been supporting regimes of kings, army dictators, civilian dictators, but still they always talk about democratization. It was for democratization of Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria that some world power used its bombing planes. Some world power had to destroy hospitals, bridges, schools, everything for export of democracy. So this is again a very major challenge that has to be faced. Next, please. The third important challenge that we face today is that of unipolarism and neocolonialism in the name of modernization. We are not told that you must westernize, but we are told modernize. So every single ruler, intellectual in Muslim world or globally would like to talk about we need modernization. And what that means is, unless you are following exactly the dress, the language, the food of the Western nations, you are not modernized. So if you are supposed to cover your whole body in Nigeria, in Malaysia, in some other part of the world, but you are not wearing a tight jeans, a t-shirt and a jogger, you are not a modern person. You are living still in the age of traditional people. So the word modernization, which means the whole globe should accept one single culture, dominant of one single understanding of civilization, and that unless that is done, people need to be educated or by force through sanctions, through conditions put on them, they should be compelled to follow that one single culture. Next, please. Similarly, we find that the next challenge is marginalization of family values. Capitalism came with the concept of self-centered entrepreneurial development. And therefore, the family system got seriously influenced by that. Industrialization, economic development in the West and East all demanded more and more workforce to the extent of bringing women from their home and asking them to work shoulder to shoulder with men. Although in their wages, they were never equal even today, but they were always exploited in the name of development and economic progress. The immediate consequence was family got marginalized. And family essentially is the source of culture, human values, enlightenment, and development. If you lose family, you have no future of civilization. It is in family that a child for the first time learns how to speak politely, how to be truthful, how to be brave, how to be inquisitive. All aspects are given by the family before the child goes to a school. If family is disturbed and you have broken families or no families, or family is interpreted in terms of just economic relationship or biological relationship. And then even the biological relationship is further elaborated that you don't have to have biological relationship with opposite sex, but even same sex. So all those concepts have marginalized family values of love, sacrifice, compassion, unity, and so on and so forth. Next, please. The another challenge is particularly for Muslims, and that is demonization of Islam. And I quote directly from a very well-known Western political scientist and historian, Sam Huntington. He does not talk about some problems with Muslims. He does not say that Muslims in some areas are perhaps extremist or not moderate. But what he's saying is eye-opening. Just listen to it. He says, underlying problem for the West is not Islamic fundamentalism, it is Islam, a different civilization whose people are convinced of superiority of their culture and are obsessed with the inferiority of their power. Very simple words, but they speak for volumes. The words are telling you that Muslims are a deprived people. They are less educated, less powerful, and they look towards the West enviously with hate because they don't have all those resources. And therefore, their main concern is obsessed with their superiority of faith and culture. They want to grab power by one mean or the other. This whole story is a fiction about Islam. Islam is not what he is trying to project, but that's what is the dominant understanding of academia, of media, and of a statesperson in the West about Islam. Next, please. Then you find another challenge, and that is separation between Deen and Dunya, between religion and society, or religion and state, and so on and so forth. This has been one of the concepts which has been implanted not recently, but for over 2 centuries in the Muslim mind. Muslims have been told, it's very good. If you want to go on Friday for your prayer, please go and make it. If you want to prolong it, have a prolonged prayer. But you should not think of bringing the benefits of prayer in economic dealing, political dealing, social dealing, defense transactions. All those are secular areas of dealing with world. So you have 2 lives. One life in masjid or in a shrine, in a khanqah, in a zawiya, where you go for spirituality, go and talk to your God as long as you want. But when you are back in marketplace, back in parliament, back in the legislature, then don't talk about what you did in your mosque. 2 separate realms. They should not be mixed together. So Deen and Dunya are 2 domains. To the extent today Muslims firmly believe in that and quite often try to keep a balance between the 2. For Deen, they go to make Umrah and Hajj. For Dunya, they get involved in even drug business because they think it's business. It's not something bad or haram. So this duality has been created for last over 2 centuries, and it is one of the major problems we face. Next, please. Linked to it is again the challenge of secularism. Quite often people talk about secularism and claim that secularism is a tolerant system. It means you believe in your God, practice your religion, I believe in my God. But if you look deeply, you will find Secularism is essentially a form of religion. We call it pseudo-religion, half religion. Because secularism tells you that your breakfast, your office hours, your rest hours, everything is to be determined in terms of market mechanism. Whatever market demands is to be done by you. Although secularism has not delivered what it claims, in that sense, it has failed. It has never given peace to the world. It has never given tolerance to the world. It's never given love to the world. It's secularism of the West which led to world wars, which led to the destruction of Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, and whatnot. It is secularism which has resulted into destruction of these cultures. The valuable libraries and valuable shrines which were there were destroyed in the name of democracy and secularism. So secularism has proven to be the most intolerant philosophy. Yet, those who talk about secularism, particularly those in India and elsewhere, they say secularism gives you freedom. But wherever you have secularism, you have worse kind of oppression. In Indian secularism, the Dalits, Christians, low caste Hindus, Muslims are the daily victims of discrimination of secularism. And same applies to so-called white racist supremacists in the West who believe in secularism, but for them, anyone other than their own ideology is a low human being. So this is how the secularism has worked. Next, please. Then we find it has led to another challenge, and that is of individualism and ethical relativism, which means every child who is born is fed ideas by the Cartoon Network that this child is by himself or herself everything. If the child does not get at breakfast what the child wants, then it is a violation of human rights. If the child feels that his parents have shouted at him and have caused a psychological shock for him, he can sue parents for shouting at him, which means I-ness and never we-ness. If we have I-ness and we have only individuals, can we ever have any civilization? And that has led naturally to ethical relativism. Every individual believes whatever I say and I do is right. Therefore, my way of doing is good for me, your way for you. There is no absolute good. Good is relative. And that has been spread to the extent that even Muslims talk in those terms and say that, well, you may have your own way of thinking and our own way of thinking, which means there's no absolute or ultimate truth, no ultimate reality, but everything is relative. And this is a child of secularism and individualism. Next, please. Another problem that we face today is that of disunity of the Muslim Ummah. You find over 50 Muslim countries, but not even on the issue of Palestine and Kashmir, they join together with one voice. Some of them even recognize the illegitimate state of Israel and make treaties with that state and develop normalcy with Israel. Yet they claim they are Arabic-speaking country. Arabic speaking does not make anyone Muslim. Arabic was the language of Abu Jahl and Adwa and many others. And they spoke very good Arabic. Islam is not Arabism. Islam came to Islamize Arabs and not to Arabize people. Therefore, the main problem of Muslim Ummah is disunity because of nationalism, Arab nationalism, Afro nationalism, Euro nationalism, and so on and so forth. And each country where people are born, they think that is their nationality. So Turkish, Iranian, Nigerian nationalism, all concepts based on land or color or language. And then Muslims have no political stability. Next, please. There is a instability in most of Muslim countries, and very strangely, more in those countries where you have Allah given natural resources. In all those Muslim countries where Allah has blessed with oil, with minerals, with a number of natural benefits, natural seashores, natural seaports, all those aspects which are given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Muslim countries, that has ultimately led them to political instability by, first and foremost, influencing intellectuals by colonizing their mind. So most of Muslim rulers educated in the West speak for interest of West, not for their own country. And then within the country, there is always intervention through internal people, not outsiders. Outsiders involved, but definitely they are using always internal persons for this political instability, so they are able to manipulate the way they want. Next, please. Then, educational backwardness. Muslim countries have been by design kept behind education. They were given those philosophies of education which make them good consumers, but not good producers. So they consume ideas. They never produce ideas. The whole education system makes them functional, educated person who can be a good clerk, a good manager, but cannot be a good leader. And Muslim countries, unfortunately, have adopted most of the textbooks and syllabi of the colonizers. They don't have their own mind. They don't have their own philosophy, and therefore they are educationally backward. Now, this is one side of the coin where I have tried to share with you 11 major issues that we are facing. So let's try to find out what Allah has given us and what are the strengths of the Muslim Ummah that Muslim intellectuals should realize. First and foremost is the strength of Muslim Ummah. It has power of faith. If it activates its faith, no one can face its strike. That's why we have experienced several times in the history of early Islam, you find that there are people who are small in number, but they are able to conquer large number of people. And the Quran gives a principle that if you are 20 committed persons, sabirun, then you are going to overcome 200. This is the power of faith. When faith is weakened, then with all guns and armament and logic, Muslims cannot succeed. Faith is not something blind, but faith is realizing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's uniqueness and power or tawheed in our personal life, in family life, in social life, in cultural life, in economy, in everything. And that becomes the power which cannot be faced by any of the satanic forces. So power of faith is the greatest asset that we have, but the problem is we don't realize it. It's only when we realize it, then we become powerful in terms of faith. Next, please. Then we find that Muslim Ummah is gifted with highly professional human resource. I have not found more intelligent, more educated, more skillful persons than many Muslims in the West and in the East. I have taught for quite a long duration in America, over a decade. I have taught in China, I have taught in Malaysia, I have traveled extensively, but nowhere I have found that highly skilled persons as Muslim Ummah has produced. Yet their services, creativity is utilized by the West and not by their own countries, which has various reasons. Next, please. The other strength of Muslim Ummah is its natural richness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made even very geographically small countries gifted with enormous power of oil and gas and natural resources. For example, Pakistan has 4 seasons. It has deserts, it has mountains, it has 6 highest and largest glaciers of the world. But it lacks sincerity of leaders, loyalty of leaders, vision of leaders, and therefore it has not been able to make its impact in the world culture and civilization. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us enormous resources. In Pakistan, we have second largest reserve of coal of the world. But for 75 years, we have never made use of it for energy generation. Next, Muslim world is privileged to have a country, Pakistan, with nuclear capacity. Though people think it's a poor country, but its scientists indigenously were able to explore this whole area and come up with nuclear power. And it also impacted others like Iran. If Muslim country has that power, it can use it for enormous economic, educational, health issues. Today, it's not just a matter of creating any warheads. No, nuclear power means you use it for surgery, use it for power generation, use it for cure of diseases, use it for changing of the areas. Deserts can be changed into greeneries, green areas with nuclear power. All that uses are there, but unfortunately, we think we are weak. We are not weak. Muslim Ummah has great strength. Next, please. Muslims are the only people who can claim they are an international Ummah. They are not French Muslims and Dutch Muslims, but they are just servants of Allah wherever they are. They carry their passport of Islam, not of their countries. Wherever they go, the only single word used by them is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I bring with me Allah's blessing, salama, rahma on you, and pray for you to be under Allah's blessing. One single word is the passport. And this is universal. Other faiths, fortunately or unfortunately, have been limited and confined. Colonialism made Christianity faith of colonialist. Wherever they went with their gunpowder, but at the same time, they try to preach their faith. And many other faiths remain landlocked. Hinduism was never a faith that was allowed to go out of India. Zoroastrianism never came out of Persia. So Islam is the only faith which has no link with land, no link with ethnicity, no link with color, no link with language, but only one single statement: we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supremacy, authority, and his love and compassion for the whole of humanity. So Tawheed unifies and they become international Ummah, which is not concerned about color of skin and genetic origin. Next, please. Another strength of Muslim Ummah is its global awakening of youth. Wherever you go, you find young people with enthusiasm. They want to see Islam in their life. Till yesterday, the person was drug addict, but when he discovered Islam, then he is seen more in masjid and more in active fields of life than just sitting in a corner and enjoying drug. Transformation of personality. So youth have emerged globally because of Islam, and you have a global awakening everywhere in the world. This is a great strength of the Muslim Ummah. Next, please. Another aspect that I call strength of Muslim Ummah is emergence of a comprehensive understanding of Deen, that Islam is not religion, but Deen. Religion means rituals and ceremonies and offerings and just prayers and worship. But Deen means transformation of behavior, economic behavior, political behavior, social behavior, in the market mechanism, everywhere you behave differently, because now you become servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and try to find out what will please Allah in my economic activity, what will please Allah in my home, what will please Allah in my university. Every single profession becomes a new profession, a new approach. So Deen is totally different than religion. Islam is not religion. The Quran nowhere called Islam as mazhab or religion, but always use the word inna deena indallahi al-Islam. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum. Never said we have prescribed for you a mazhab, but always said it is deen, and deen means totality. Deen means complete way of life. Deen means transformation of human behavior. Now you have just seen the challenges and what are the strengths. And if you want to make a SWOT analysis, you first look for what are challenges, then try to find what are strengths. But then you also want to see what are opportunities, what are possibilities. So let's try to spend a few more minutes on what are the prospects and possibilities. Next slide, please. The prospects lie with youth. And in that, I very simply, through a diagram, indicate what I think. I believe youth can do revolutionary work by way of, first and foremost, discovering their identity. Second, developing a critical approach to study the so-called East and West. It's not just a matter of criticizing the West, no. It's a matter of critical study. If West has something good, we must recognize it. If it has some weaknesses, we must speak about it. Therefore, discovering Islamic identity, that you have to have a Tawhidi personality. You should not make compromise with any aspects where Allah's sovereignty is influenced. And that leads to critical study of East and West. And that leads to development of a holistic personality, not a personality which is a replica of a executive officer of France, Britain, or Germany, but your own identity, in which everything, your thinking, your feelings, your doing things are based on Deen, your way of life. Then production of ideas. When we have Islamic personality, then we have to think Islamically on every aspect. Then you have to come up with how Islam deals with economic problems, political problems, social problems, psychological problems, emotional problems. All those aspects mean production of ideas and not consumption of ideas. Presently, Muslim youth are consumers of ideas. They read through Google and Wikipedia and other areas of sources of knowledge what is happening in the West. Imitate it, use it, repeat it to show they are intellectual. Now, that means you are just utilizing what has been given by the West and thinking you are a good thinker. No. Youth have to come up with production of ideas. And that means knowledge-based ethical workforce. Throughout the world, as Vice Chancellor of the university, I have attended globally meetings of Vice Chancellors, and everywhere the slogan is, we should have economy-based knowledge, knowledge economies. Whatever market demands should be produced. If market demands 10,000 IT experts, produce that. If it demands 10,000 engineers, produce that. But there is no concept of what is good or ethical for humanity. What humanity needs. Do they need robots or they need human beings? Do they need people who are self-centered and just entrepreneurs? Or they need people who are concerned about the welfare of people and well-being of people? So knowledge-based ethical workforce. And then this workforce in trade, in academia, in professional areas like medical science, in electronics, IT, everywhere, this should be the disseminator of Islamic message of hikmah. Islam is message of hikmah, of wisdom, of truth, of love, of compassion, of humanity, of justice. So when a person is producing knowledge and at the same time is an active worker, not a passive worker, only then dissemination can take place. Dawah is not a task of people who have retired from their professions and now they are perhaps left a few years with gray hair. They travel globally and talk about Islam. No, that's not the meaning of Dawah. Dawah means you in your profession excel, and through your profession serve people and let them learn why you are doing it, just for the sake of reputation or to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Dawah means when you are by your professional excellence educating people in the benefits of Islam and value of Islamic system. Next, please. So what should be our strategy? And that's my last slide. And I said in the beginning, I would like to have more time for questions. So our strategy has to be, first and foremost, liberation from neo-colonial mindset. I have written on that and I have talked on that at various international forums, that we must have decolonization of Muslim mind. Muslim mind need to be decolonized. They should get rid of all those concepts which are deeply entrenched in their mind and soul. If they want to study sociology, they cannot run away from Weber, Durkheim, and Talcott Parson, and so on and so forth. If they want to study psychology, they cannot do it without Sigmund Freud, Eric Fromm, and B.F. Skinner, and so on and so forth. They need to decolonize their mind and try to find out what is true source of knowledge. Second, they need to excel. They cannot be mediocres. Mediocres cannot rule the world. It's only those who excel are in demand. So Muslim youth have to excel in their areas of specialization. If they are biochemists, they should be top biochemists. If they are linguists, then best linguist. Thirdly, strengthening Islamic education, economic, and political institutions, not the individuals, but institutions that impart Islamic education, that support economic ventures, that provide guidelines in how to have stability in political work. And then ethical revolution based on the Quran and Sunnah. It's a peaceful, constitutional, democratic revolution based on the Quran and Sunnah. Wherever you are, in majority or minority, then with these two sources of guidance, an ethical revolution, how to behave with people humbly, politely, with kindness, with concern, with sacrifice. And that's how the Prophet, peace be upon him, was able to bring revolution. Not by violence, not by use of terrorism, but by the force of ethics and morality. So this should be the strategy for youth to strengthen themselves, unify themselves, and make impact in contemporary world. I have taken perhaps slightly more time than I expected, but I'm ready for any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. If anyone has any question, please raise your hand and I will allow you to ask. Please raise your hand. Yes, Ibrahim, brother Ibrahim.
Hassan Wali also has raised his hand.
Okay, Hassan Wali. Oh, Hassan Wali. Yes, after Ibrahim, I will come to you, sir. Yes, brother Ibrahim, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, I'm brother Ibrahim from the DRC, and I would like to ask my question according to education. Dr. Anis, do you advise us, future couples, because I've seen we've been insisting on the way of life, for our children, should they go to the kindergarten or should they get the time to read the Quran? Because I had Dr. Ibrahim Al-Fiqh, Rahimahullah, said that the life of someone from 0 to 7 years is 90% of his formation. So I don't know, because the kindergarten is more Western than the madrasa. What do you advise us at the 0 to 7 years or the pre-primary level? What is your advice for children education?
Well, there are not just two systems, there are more systems of education. And even in the West, those who are tired of the Western education system, they have developed homeschooling. And that means it is parents themselves who teach their children not only what is mathematics and what is physics, but also who has made physical laws and who has made universe. And therefore, the education that can be provided by parents is the best way of education. And most of the school systems globally accept graduates of home education, because you are also using those textbooks which they are using along with your own input in that. So it's not just two systems, but there are many systems, and Muslims should find out what is best for them. Similarly, they must develop their own education institutions where language, science, and everything is taught in the light of the Quran and Sunnah. As you said, the Quran provides guidance in many areas. So those Muslims who are not apologetic, but who are proud and knowledgeable about Islam, who know Islam directly from the Quran and Sunnah, it's their job to develop those institutions, not just memorization of the Quran. That's not enough. The Quran can be memorized for blessing, but if you don't know the meaning, what's the benefit of that? So education means not confining to Quranic memorization, nor sending to kindergarten alone, but we have to have our own institutions where our values of Quran and Sunnah are the basis of child upbringing. Next question, please.
Yes, Sheikh Hassan Wali from South Africa, please unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Doctor,
Alaikum
I've been told I want to tell you in tears, I've spent 70 years on the journey that you have described in an hour. I've done secular research right from the beginning to the present time. I hate ourselves because we have glorified our history of the past, and that's all we live with, just the history of the past. We have no idea for the future. The greatest mistake we made is that we created the Islamic schools with a dichotomy of secular education and Islamia, instead of going in with one education, a Muslim education. And in that way, we could have discussed everything else. But we are 1 minute wear the hat of a secular teacher, and the next minute we are teaching Islam. What a gross injustice that brings disgust and confusion in the child. From the analogical conversations I have with children, they said that the ulama, us teachers, have lost them because we cannot respond to the present time in our schools, and they are losing hope. As you said, there is so much in the youth. They want to break out. We have broke the shackles of colonialism, but not. We love their language, we eat their food, we love their dress. So we still have been the slaves since 1900. How are we going to do this? You've summed it up beautifully. I'm writing at the moment, as you said. I'm trying to find some solutions to it, but
Jazakallah khair. I appreciate very much what you have said, and exactly what I tried to convey myself. The solution is in the Muslim production of ideas. Muslims have to produce their own ideas and present their solution to the world, not just to Muslims. And I think that's how we can make our contribution of bringing peace and justice to the world. Next, please.
Yes, Brother Sulaiman Muhammad. Brother Sulaiman, yes.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah, Sheikh. My question here is about this marginalization. About, as for we in Nigeria, like in Yoruba land, we have some family that are Muslim and Christian, that is most commonly in our family. So how can we relate with them so that it won't contribute our Sunnah and our Deen? That is my question, sir.
Well, in Nigeria, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with a situation where you have neighboring people who Christians and neighboring who are Muslim, and that makes dawah very much easy for you. But that dawah has to be done with our behavioral aspects, not our speech. Not by giving a small book to a Christian to read, but our dealings with them, how we deal with them. if we invite them for a cup of tea and welcome them and let them see how a Muslim family is sharing resources and how they are loving each other and how they are more peaceful than others, then this is the way of dawah. So Allah has blessed you with opportunities to outreach, to go and meet and invite them. And I think that should be fully utilized by brothers in Nigeria.
Yes, Sister Siti Nur Rehan.
Assalamualaikum, Doctor. So my question
Assalamu
is, how can the global awakening of Muslim youth contribute to a more nuanced and balanced understanding of Islam and Muslim societies, countering stereotypes and misconceptions?
Three simple steps. First is to decolonize their mind, whatever they have been taught in their universities and colleges. They look critically into that and find out how much of that content was unconsciously absorbed by them. Example, if they have read about family, and family means just a husband and wife and one or two children, which is the normal understanding of family in the West and textbooks. Is this the understanding of family in Islam? Or family means not only your own children, more than two or as many as you like, but also your parents, grandparents, uncles, cousins. So they have to liberate themselves from the concept of Western family or Eastern family, which has been put in their mind through textbooks. So Muslim youth have to first decolonize their mind. Second, they have to become producers of ideas. Whatever they discover after this liberation of mind, they should share it by speech, by writing with the people, and that is going to impact people. When it impacts people, people change. When people change, society changes. So it's not just a matter of one person, but I think youth have that potential, and that's what I recommend, that they should look critically on the East and the West, and at the same time, look deeply into Quran and Sunnah, and based on that, become the torch bearers of Islamic thought in modern age. Next, please.
Yes, Brother Hermanto.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I'm from Indonesia. We have a big country, in Islamic country. But what you said about contemporary challenge, what we have in Indonesia, like that, then how to get our strategy, the strength, the economic, and the education, because we a poor country.
Well, Indonesia is one of those countries Allah has blessed with enormous resources, a very productive population, and many resources which you have can be used for development of Indonesia and other countries as well. What is needed is excellence in education, knowing latest skills, but with a very clear commitment to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his people, not for one's own self, but for the welfare of the people. When that approach is taken, which is Islamic approach, then you find a transformation of society, and you find a big change in the behavior of people. When they see you as selfless, they become selfless also. Selfishness is a sickness. We must come out of that. Next, please.
Yes, Rishant Tuan. Yes, Rishant Tuan, please unmute yourself.
Next.
Pikalala Muhammad, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Your brother Muhammad Sakara from Uganda in East Africa. First of all, I want to thank Prof for the insightful discussion. I've noted you didn't indicate the point of Islamophobia as one of the challenges facing the Islamic world. I don't know whether you intentionally left it out, but it is a big problem, especially in Muslim minority countries like Uganda, where you try to come up with any project Islamic, it is shut down. I hope it happens in other countries. Secondly, don't you think it is time now for us to have an international forum where if there are efforts being made in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, we can have a discussion platform where we can discuss progress has being made in the different countries to support the youth in their awakening of Islam in the world. Thank you very much.
Well, Jazakallah khair. When I talked about fundamentalism and I referred to Sam Huntington, then the point was covered there of Islamophobia. I did not make it separately, but this is a long project which has been going on for last 2 centuries, fear of Islam through academic world and as well as political world. So you are right, it is a major problem, but we have to respond to it not just by emotional ways, but by presenting positive aspects of Islam in the most logical and scientific way. That's how we have to counter the Islamophobia approach of the people who look only on a few aspects which they think are weaknesses of Islam and they project those. Now, those our response should not be of apologies on those issues. We should be proud of those aspects, but at the same time, we must share with them how Islam has benefited mankind and how Islamic principles are globally and beneficial for mankind. The second question, I did not follow properly. What was the second part of your question? Yes, answer. Can you?
Yeah, brother is not.
Okay, next one.
Alia Namatu. Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi
Walaikum salam.
wabarakatuh. My name is Alia Namatovo from Uganda.
Okay.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank dear Dr. Anis for the great opportunity and this wonderful session to be briefed by you. Barakallahu fikum wa jazakallahu khair. My question is, I've been attentive in all that you have taken us through. My question is, us in Uganda, we are known that our country is a Muslim-based country, but you can find that parents, young women, as I am, they give birth to men who are not Muslims, and the few who get married to the Muslims, they also give birth in large numbers. But the issue we have, or the problem we have, we as people here, you can find it's not a problem for a girl child or for a boy child to get married to a person who is not a Muslim, and they give birth to babies. Can I say that they are Muslim or they are not Muslim because you have gotten married someone who is not a Muslim? So that challenge is common and they are not facing it. Okay, when you are raised by parents who are Muslims and others are not Muslims, it's not being taken as a challenge. They see that it's normal as long as you are in love with that person. So how best we as youth can we fight against that one?
You see, this is not confined to Uganda. You will find globally, if youth are not properly educated, if they are not properly aware of the Quranic principles of what is halal and haram, then they can be easily trapped into those poetic expressions that love is blind, love has no faith, love has no religion, and so on and so forth. All those have been part of literature globally. So the key lies in direct understanding of the Quran and Sunnah. And you must do your best to have special sessions for youth where instead of uh, um, um, trying to criticize them personally, just educate them very politely and humbly and share with them the meaning of the Quran and prophetic Sunnah on this subject. Both are very clear that there cannot be a marriage between a non-Muslim and a Muslim. So you have to make sure that we have more study groups where Quran and Sunnah is studied, and even those who may have done that may be invited to make a presentation based on the Quran or Sunnah on that subject. So they are themselves involved in learning directly the implications of such marriages. Next, please.
Yes, Brother Ghufran, please unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam.
Yes, sir. I'm from India, from Darul Huda Islamic University, research scholar. My question is that in India, we are facing many problems as minority, such as lynching and many things. And before conveying our messages, here our Muslim brothers are afraid of being lynched or something else. So my question is that what do you recommend or how do you guide us to work in this situation? Because another culture is trying to prevail over Islamic culture, or they are trying to establish their culture, their Hindutva culture. So in this situation of hatred, what should we do, the Muslim of India or the Ummah in all around the world, minority?
Jazakallah khair. You see, the situation of Makkah guides you how Muslims behaved in Makkah when they were not in majority and they were oppressed. They were placed on burning fire till fire got extinguished. They were dragged in burning sand, but they never withdrew from their faith, which means istiqama, which means your constancy in your faith, number one. Number two, Muslims from India particularly and other parts of the world have to come out of a psyche, and that psyche is of minority. Unfortunately, even Muslim scholars don't mind using this word and they say minorities. Minority means as a term that you are accepting a quantitative authority of people, and quantitatively you are weaker and they are stronger. Naturally, those who are weaker should be dominated by those who are strong. That's what you said a while ago, that those who are in majority, they think that they are in power and you are a minority, so they can easily remove you. But if you develop a sense that you are not minority, but you are a Muslim Ummah in India, a Muslim Ummah in Germany, a Muslim Ummah in France, a Muslim Ummah in America, then you have an identity of your own. This identity is not quantitative, it's qualitative. It's your faith which makes you transcend and much, much superior to those who are worshipping cows and monkeys, who are trying to bow down in front of trees and stones. So your identity should not be of Indian minority. Identity has to be of Islam. When you discover that dimension, then automatically any fear phobia is bound to disappear. It is Islam which makes a person liberate from fear, because he becomes under protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then trust of Allah increases and Allah's support increases. So first step I recommend is to come out of this psyche of minority and define yourselves as an ummah which has a identity, a purpose, a role to play, and that is universal ummah, that is not confined to any place. Quran and Sunnah are not for just majority situation, but even when Muslims are in small number, they provide them guidance. And if they properly understand that without any apologies, without trying to read the Quran with the mind of some other system, but read the Quran as Quran is, then it provides you guidance, and then you are able to, inshallah, establish your identity and preserve it.
Sir, should we take more questions or we stop?
It's up to you. If your time permits, I don't mind. If your time is...
Yes, we have kept this half-hour gap for this purpose. So if yes, Brother Alimu Huzaifa Isa.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
This is Brother Alimu Huzaifa from Uganda, Islamic University in Uganda. Thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. But my concern is on the point which you talked about, as the disunity among the Muslim Ummah. It has been rampant in our country, and my question comes from there, in that we are having difference in ideologies, and we have some emergences of different sects, in that someone is coming up with an ideological term in the Islamic perspective, and then is taking the Muslim Ummah to that kind. I don't know whether we have the provision of dividing the ideologies in Islam, and we say this is one Ummah, this is intentionally for Jannah, and then some people are moving to that side. Then also the concern goes on the side of the sheikhs who also give us the teachings on Islam. In that one gives a resolution or gives an answer upon a certain question that he has been given to or asked to, and then the other one comes in and then is backing at the answers given by certain sheikhs. So, and it has been rampantly in the youth sheikhs, those that are upcoming. So, Doctor, if you have something that you can give in the guidance of that, I will be very grateful.
Jazakallah khair. You see, Islam is the only faith which invites its followers to think critically, raise questions, and try to understand the Quran and Sunnah from various perspectives. Consequently, you find the tafsir, Quranic exegeses, which are more oriented towards legal aspects, others more towards linguistic aspect, others more towards aqidah and behavior, and so on and so forth. If the Quran itself wants us to approach critically its text and come up with what we understand, what's wrong if someone comes and talks about a different interpretation? The only thing is, it should have basis in the Quran and Sunnah, but not in one's own mind. So long one or the other sheikh is referring to directly a Quranic ayah or directly to a hadith, then nothing wrong in listening to it. You may not agree with that, but nothing wrong in appreciating it. And maybe sometime you may think that it also have some truth. So I believe Islam allows difference of opinion, but that should not lead to schisms, sects, That should not lead to calling others less Muslim and doubting their sincerity. No, so long as they are sincere and sincerely understand the visible meaning of the Quran, nothing wrong in having disagreements. Next, please.
Yes, Sister Lejla Delagic, please unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum, Professor. I'm Leila Delagic from Serbia. I'm PhD candidate at IIUM. My question is how to create strategy in excelling and strengthening of Islamic education in Muslim minority countries, for example, in Serbia, where government is so-called secular, but actually related closely to a Christian Orthodox Church, Serbian Church. The same government decide on curriculums in schools, give the accreditation for private schools, institutions, faculties. Here I mean particularly on Islamic schools. And so it's not so easy to establish Islamic educational institutions. And on the other side, having education at home by parents, as you're suggesting, this is also questionable since there is a need for an Islamic education among parents too. So yeah, there is recent awakening of youth in Serbia, but yet there is a lot of confusion among them regarding Islamic knowledge. So what is your advice?
Jazakallah khair. You know, in your situation, the method should be very simple. You should try to ask the church, those who are Catholics or whatever is the Christian faith they have, ask them that how do you preserve your faith and how do you educate your children? How do you keep your tradition going on? And how do you safeguard them from secularity, which means that they become godless and they become independent. And when they tell you that we have denominational schools, we teach them right from beginning following things, then you should thank them and say that that's what we should do, what you have been doing. Now you are not doing something now which can annoy anyone, but you are learning from them and trying to do something which they have done themselves. So they cannot object. They cannot say, you Muslims are creating terrorists by making this school. They can only say, you are giving your children some basic education which is going to help them become Muslim. So this is the meaning of hikmah, that you use hikmah, a methodology that the person who is being addressed is convinced about what you are saying without feeling that he is being opposed. Secondly, have a discussion with the intellectuals and people around. What is the meaning of secularity in the Western mind? If secularity means separation between church and state, then it means that these two things can exist in one land. And that means if two things can live, three also can live. Now, it's something different, as I said in my discourse, that unfortunately, those who claim to be secular are the most atrocious, most stubborn, most brutal people of the world. In the name of secularity, they have done everything wrong. But secularity as defined in the Western mind simply means these two domains. So if we, as if we are very naive, with naivety, if we ask that secularity means this, like you see, French secularity is hurt by a 1 square foot of a scarf of a girl, but not hurt when someone comes out in bikinis, does not hurt. It's okay because they think that's their culture. And Christianity do not allow that. Christianity, which they claim, because France has been Orthodox Catholic throughout. Catholicism does not allow them to come out in bikinis. Yet they define that French culture. So seculars have become themselves fundamentalist. They use this term to impose their ideology. But instead of fighting with them, debating with them, if you ask very naively that if I understand correctly, secularity means that these two things, Catholic Church and state, can live together, then do you think that should be same for Muslims or different? And if anyone is in senses, cannot disagree with you. They have to agree with you. So just use of reason and methodology can solve problems very easily, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. I apologize to Sister Lera, to Mariam. We don't have any time left. We will start our next session after 9 minutes, so we will take a little break. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for giving us time and always there to guide us, to encourage us. So we hope, inshallah, you will continue to benefit.
Jazakallah khair. I need prayers of all of you. And if there are any questions, you can use my email and send that to me. May Allah bless you all and have a very pleasant and safe day, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khair.